Welcome to race weekend in Indianapolis. Sunday, for the 99th time, the world's most versatile drivers will perform on a global stage on this historic track. But today, it's the dress rehearsal, carb day for the 99th Indianapolis 500. The fans are here. It is a party day in Indianapolis, and cars have just been released from the pit lane. The final practice and preparation for the 500 is underway. It's a 1-hour practice, followed by the biggest event of the year for the future stars of IndyCar. The top step of the Mazda Road to Indy, it's the Indy Lights Freedom 100 coming up just after noon, and then the entertaining pit stop competition with the stars of IndyCar at 1:30, and this is the beginning of a spectacular motorsports weekend, the biggest weekend in motorsports, and a NASCAR America Motorsports 2-hour special at 3:30 today. We'll have reports here from Indianapolis, also from Charlotte for NASCAR's Coca-Cola 600, and Monaco as well with Leigh Diffey and the Formula One gang. So Leigh is otherwise detained today. Townsend Bell is racing in the 99th 500. I'm Kevin Lee. Robin Miller has joined us in the booth, and Paul Tracy is our mainstay. Robin, it has certainly been a different type of month preparing for this race.
Well, Kevin, we're not used to seeing all the accidents we saw and the guys flying through the air. And I think today in Carb Day, instead of it just being kind of a going through the motions deal, I think there's at least 3 drivers that are going to get lots of track time because 2 of them just got in their car. And I just think that this whole day is taking on a different air because it's a little more serious and people aren't really sure about what they've got. And I think there's going to be more running than you're going to see in a long time.
Yeah, certainly we're going to see a lot more running than in the days when I used to drive these cars. We would basically go out as we watch Ryan Briscoe, who stepped in this car, make his first lap on the track. In the days that I used to drive, we would basically go out and run a handful of laps, maybe 20 laps, check your gear ratios, make sure there was no oil leaks, make sure everything was right, maybe scrub a set of tires. Now you're going to see these guys like Briscoe. He might run a half distance in this deal. Key today is really going to be checking gear ratios. Carb day, you don't do any carb tuning anymore, but these Chevy motors and the Honda guys will be fine-tuning these fuel mixtures for the race.
Well, that number 5 car from Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports is certainly one of the stories we're following. For more on that, let's go to pit road and Kelly Stavist.
Yeah, Kevin, that announcement was just made yesterday that it will be Ryan Briscoe who will fill in for the injured James Hinchcliffe. You see he's coming in to practice one of his pit stops right now. Now, Briscoe, of course, a veteran and former pole sitter of this crash. But for those who haven't seen it, James Hinchcliffe, there you see him suffered a nasty crash in practice earlier this week. It was a broken right suspension that sent him hard into that wall. He suffered injuries to his legs and pelvis area that required surgery. The good news is Hinch is now recovering at a local hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. But meanwhile, it was Briscoe who got the call to step in, and I spoke with him just moments before he got in the car this morning. Well, Ryan, what was it like getting the last-minute call to come race the Indy 500?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you hate getting the call for these reasons, but you know, it's great to be here. You know, I'm so proud to be, you know, the one that got the call to fill in for Hinch. It's a great team. They've been doing a great job all month long, and I just hope to keep on going with all the work that Hinch has been doing this month. They've got really high expectations for the race, and today's final practice is going to be really important just for me to get used to the traffic, feel out these aero kits with other cars on track, and you know, from where we're starting, we'll be working on moving forward through the pack.
Obviously, it's a new car to you with these new aero kits, as you pointed out. You had a refresher course yesterday. How did it feel getting back in the car?
Felt great. The car was really good. It was just a very good feeling to be out here at the Speedway doing laps. So it's great, you know, but we just got to be smart today. You know, I haven't driven in traffic yet. Coming in at the last minute to do the race, it's not ideal, but I've been here a few times, and I feel good about, you know, our possibilities and my ability to adapt quickly, so feeling good about it.
So an optimistic Briscoe will be making his first IndyCar start of 2015, but this is his 10th Indy 500 start. But there are more changes to the starting grid. For that, we go to Jan Beekes.
There's been some changes on the back row as well. Now, Carlos Huertas, of course, drives for Dale Coyne, but then he's been feeling a little bit off, a little bit dizzy, so they checked him out and found out he had an inner ear issue, and so that was causing a problem with equilibrium, so he's out of the car. So Tristan Vautier, who's now in this car having some shakedown laps, he has found out he was on the way to a race, a sports car race at Silverstone. He stopped at Chicago, got off the airplane, checked his phone and said, "Don't get on the plane to England. We got a shot for you at the Indy 500. He's shaking it down. So last minute changes for Dale Coyne. Marty?
We ought, of course, the theme of the month have been wrecks here at Indianapolis, and the first one to go into that territory was Helio Castroneves, a three-time winner. I talked to him moments ago, and he told me that the crash was very unexpected. He said, "I knew I was going to hit the wall, but what I didn't expect was to go upside down." Now we'll look at the crash that happened last Wednesday for Helio Castroneves, and the team very impressively got him back out on the track a couple of hours later after this. They, of course, had to go to a backup car for Helio Castroneves, and the backup car was actually the car that he ran at the Indianapolis Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. You see Helio protecting himself in that wreck as he goes upside down. Then once again, he described as very unexpected. Did not expect that part of it. Helio described the backup car as outstanding to me moments ago. He said, all the Penske cars have been very strong here. I feel like we have a chance to win this race. But what I don't want to do is put too much emphasis on this practice session. He said, right now, Kevin, it's much cooler than it's going to be for the Indy 500. So he said, I'm not going to learn too much today, but I think we have a shot to win. And of course, you talk about Helio, Kevin. He's trying to get in that elite category of four-time winners of the Indianapolis 500.
Just 3 other legends have done that. Helio can become the 4th. And you're right, Marty. I think we've all been on edge a little bit this week as we watch Helio and others roll through the pit lane. And we take a look at Will Power, who's going to be starting on the front row. Power is certainly going to be someone to deal with. He has been very clear since he won his first championship last year, Robin, that this is what's on his mind. This is the only thing left to win the world's greatest race.
Kevin, he knows that's all Roger Penske really cares about. He's already got 15 Indy 500 wins. He wants to make it 16. He wants to be one of Penske's guys that did it for him. But I think the thing that's interesting is after he qualified, he said it was so easy to run 225 miles an hour in these cars, which I think everybody thought that was kind of funny if you're not a race driver, PT.
Well, certainly when you win an Indy 500 for Roger Penske, you become one of the family. It's very difficult for Roger to let you go after you win his big prize. So we've seen that throughout the years with Rick Mears and obviously Danny Sullivan and the Unsers and all the great names that have won for Roger here. Sam Hornish, they become part of Roger's elite crew.
Power working on pit stops with Team Penske. And Scott Dixon on the pole here for the first time since 2008. What happened in 2008? He won this race.
He looks really strong so far this month of May, and there's lots of in and out laps going on right now. Guys are coming in, doing one lap, scrubbing tires for the race. They'll save some fresh tires for the race for the end, but what guys are doing, you see them coming in and out, in and out. Speeds aren't real high yet. They're just scrubbing in the tires right now.
And guys, I asked Scott about qualifying day, and he said it was a long time to wait. Remember, he went out very early, got that advantageous early draw in qualifying. Very happy with the car in race trim, but the one thing he has about 5 questions in his head that he wants to run through today in practice sessions. They are going to scrub some tires, as you mentioned, Paul, and try a couple different setup options, but what they're doing now is just scrubbing those tires, trying to get a couple laps on them, run them through a heat cycle so they can use them in Sunday's race.
Kevin, the other thing that's interesting is it didn't matter if it was the aero kit package for qualifying, the race trim package, or getting a tow or not getting a tow. Dixon was the fastest as we look at Marco Andretti, who's always been faster, just hadn't won the race yet.
And Marco's the fastest so far in this brief session.
I talked to a couple guys today, and you know, a lot of here's a whole group of cars obviously now running up at speed, which is what we want to see. There's the guys that I've talked to, the drivers are saying as a big group comes out now, it's a lot easier with this car because it's a little bit more aerodynamic than the old car. It's easier for them to lead and not really kill their fuel mileage. So I think you're going to see guys want to lead the race and stay in clean air. And this is a great group who stay on these guys and really watch how this is what it's going to look like in the race.
Well, it is already getting hairy and entertaining in this 1-hour session as we watch Graham Rahal go around Scott Dixon. It's the final hour of practice before the 99th Indianapolis 500 Carb Day from Indianapolis. Somewhat of a scheduled day off in Indianapolis. The Friday before the Indianapolis 500, Carb Day at the world's greatest race course. Packed in for a full day of activity, and it is a great weekend coming up on the NBC Sports Group as well. It's a championship Sunday coming up with a power-packed Sunday on NBC Sports, starting with Formula One's Monaco Grand Prix. Then watch all 10 Premier League matches across 10 networks of NBC Universal as the season concludes on Championship Sunday. And stick around for live opening round coverage of the French Open and final round coverage of the Senior PGA Championship on NBC. And top your night off with the Stanley Cup playoffs as the Lightning take on the Rangers in Game 5 here on NBCSN. Thanks for spending some of your Friday with us here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm Kevin Lee, along with legendary IndyCar driver Paul Tracy and our insider Robin Miller as well. As mentioned, this is a party day. It's a fun day. It's a festive day in Indianapolis. But Robin, it's taken on more of a serious tone. Those of us that don't drive these cars have a little bit of uncertainty of what's happening this week with the crashes we've seen leading up to this race.
Kevin, think about it. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there'd be 20, 25 crashes a month because there were so many entries. Now we only have 33, 34 cars. Having 4 major crashes like we had caused a lot of people some consternation about why are these cars flying and why are we crashing. So I don't think it bothered the drivers maybe as much as it did some of the media. And PT, the cars are so safe now, we're kind of lulled into a sense of, you know, nobody's going to get hurt.
Well, certainly I don't think it's any more dangerous than it was when you were a young man out here in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But certainly the accidents that we've had have been very dramatic, very played up on the media. And I've been at home all week and watching this on TV at the gym and seeing all these accidents, calling you every 10 minutes saying, what's going on, what's going on? So I've never been more excited and more interested in what's going on than ever before.
Ed Carpenter is one of those that's been involved in one of those nasty crashes, and that precipitated a number of changes ahead of qualifying on Sunday morning, and it was decided in the name of safety and as a precaution, they'll turn down the boost, which they allow extra horsepower for qualifying, and run race day trim as well. And Ed Carpenter was not able to repeat and become the first ever to win the pole for a 3rd straight time in Indianapolis. Let's take a look at what we saw from Ed. This was about 8:15 on Sunday morning in the practice, Paul.
Yeah, from what I've heard, talking to obviously our man Townsend, is, you know, he had trimmed out, was pretty light on downforce, and there was a car right there just in front of him was Will Power. So he was pulling a tow. He was going for a big time. Got in the draft of Will Power's car, and obviously that thing slid around on him in the rear. It very reminiscent of Rick Mears' crash in '92, which theoretically ended Rick's career in '92.
Right. Plus, it's almost identical to the crash Ed had a couple years ago, same place, almost the same result.
And the interesting thing about Ed Carpenter, and you saw that huge frustration, just the anger that he was going through, knowing that probably was going to derail his shot at going for 3 pole positions in a row. Now he is much more relaxed. He said, we only had 2.5 hours to rebuild that car for qualifying. It was a miracle. All 3 crews pitched together to get it ready. Now he says, we've had time. We have built this car from the front to the back exactly how we wanted. It's fine-tuned, and I'm really excited about what I'm going to get here on Carb Day and, of course, the 500 coming up.
And Jan, he was very, very lucky that there was a hold in practice to allow him to, you know, have that time to get the car ready, because if he'd have gone when he was supposed to qualify, as we see Sage Karam in a yellow car here, if he had gone when he was supposed to qualify, he wouldn't have made the bell for qualifying and might not have gotten out, been in this race at all.
Right. The thing about Karam that's interesting, he went from the back to the front twice last year and did a hell of a job as a rookie. So I asked him the other day, I said, yep, go passing Ryan Hunter-Reay down the backstretch as Ed makes it 3 wide going in. I think it might be some passing. But Karam said, I'm tired of hearing all these veterans say it's going to be hard to pass Sunday. He goes, it's going to be just like last year and might even be better. So he's going to be one of the guys to watch.
But Sage is still being treated like a rookie by his teammates. He had an interesting week. He recently purchased a new fabulous black Chevy Camaro, and the guys in the shop and the crew said, you know what, we're going to take this in, get it detailed for you. Well, it came back, and Tony Kanaan got a hold of it, and it was pink. And then he said they stole my cell phone, so I got it back. I changed the password on it, but then I can't remember the password, so I haven't been able to get in my phone for the last 5 days.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if I'd want to be Dario and Dixon and Kanaan messing around with this kid, because he's a state level, on the wrestling team. I don't know if I'd want to get in get him upset and get in a fight with him.
No, but I told him you can tell he's made it. He's been accepted by the group because they're gonna haze him.
Now for Sage, very interesting you mentioned Dario Franchitti. Of course, Dario Franchitti not only pranked him, but Dario Franchitti is versing him on what he needs for the Indy 500, and that's why he's out here working in traffic. He told me some things yesterday. He sounded like a veteran, and that's because he's been debriefed. He's been walked through by Dario. He gets up here behind Marco, working on the draft. Look, he is not afraid. Just like you said, he's going to mix it up. He knows what he wants to do in the car. He's learned all kind of nuances, like how to change the car, how to jack the weight in before he brakes coming into the pit. So a lot of veteran experience they're giving to this rookie. He looks strong.
Last year, he was so phenomenal in the race. Pit stop competition turned him into a star here as we look at Helio's car. And, he's got off to a rocky start this year, Sage, but, he's got a lot of great coaches around him, and this could be his weekend to shine.
It might be the weekend for Helio Castroneves. He came oh so close to getting number 4 last year by less than a car length behind Ryan Hunter-Reay. By the way, later today on NASCAR America, the Motorsports Special, there is a fabulous piece with Helio and Ryan Hunter-Reay talking you through the last few laps of last year's race. Right now, the Ganassi drivers are 4 of the top 5. Tony Kanaan is the fastest, then Charlie Kimball, Sage Karam, and then Gabby Chavez is 4th quick right now ahead of the pole sitter, Scott Dixon.
And Kevin, you do not want to miss that piece that you mentioned with Helio Castroneves and Ryan Hunter-Reay, as you mentioned, insight into how those final few laps played out with them together. So it's pretty cool to hear that piece. I talked to Helio moments ago, and he made a very interesting point to me. He said, because we got these aero kits for the ovals so late, we really didn't have time to spend a lot of time in the wind tunnel. And that helped us out, actually, because we were in a backup car. Teams didn't really perfect that primary car. So what happened was, when we went to a backup car, it didn't hurt us as much because there wasn't much difference. We now have a yellow on the track, Kevin, for some debris out there.
Just debris, so they'll do a track inspection, and this will give everyone a time to regroup, roll down the pit lane, and talk with the crews about how they like the car at this point.
This doesn't look like any carb day you ran, PT. Look at how many laps these guys have and how close they're running and how they're pounding around here.
I tell you what, look at the crowd in turn 4 down there. You got a full grandstand on the exit of 4. A lot of people here. I came in the track this morning, and it took me 30 minutes to get through the tunnel because the traffic was so backed up. A lot of anticipation for this race, a lot of excitement, and these guys are out here. This is the final shot that they have to figure it all out for the biggest race in the world.
And the party doesn't end after the pit stop competition here today. In some ways, it really ramps up with 3 pretty big-time concerts out there in turn number 4. OAR at about 3:30, then 38 Special, and Jane's Addiction, the headliner, at about 5:30 here today. Yellow in the final hour of practice for the 99th Indianapolis 500. Tony Kanaan is the quickest right now. Massive crowd joining us here today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for Carb Day, and you can watch today's coverage from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway online at NBCSports.com on mobile and tablets with NBC Sports Live Extra. The final practice before the 99th Indianapolis 500. Festivities ramping up here on Carb Day. The Indy Lights Freedom 100 is coming up, the pit stop competition, and more. We were speaking of Sage Karam. We've caught up with his coach. Dario Franchitti is on pit road with Jan.
Yes, not only his coach, but also been pranking Sage. But I know now it gets more serious, and I see a lot of radio chatter. What are you telling him now?
We're just talking about the car in traffic, yeah, and how it is. What does he need to make it better? How downforce level for race day? Has he got enough to be as far back as he is to start with? How can we make it better? What's going on? How does it feel? Breaking down each corner. You know, Sage last 2 days has been really focused on the car. Midweek, I think he thought he had a bit more time to fix it. Monday and today, he's absolutely been razor sharp with his focus, and the car looks fast. So as do all the Ganassi cars. So we're feeling pretty good right now.
The car does look fast, but he also looks aggressive. Have you told him to really get out there and get a real feel for the race?
He's doing everything he can to simulate what he's going to experience in the race. We talked about it all week. It's pointless having a fast car, putting the big numbers up if you cannot pass people, if you can't run in traffic, and he's really been focusing on that. So we're really happy with him. He's done a hell of a job so far, and we're trying to keep him focused. There's a lot of things going on here. Trying to keep him focused for today and obviously the race on Sunday.
Thank you, Dario. And in fact, Sage has called him, I think Dario is my angel of the season. Guys?
And obviously Sage was having a problem with comfort in the car. They brought him out and have reseated him for the moment. Scott Dixon, the pole sitter, sitting on pit road. Dario and Jan were talking about running in traffic. We've got somebody in the booth who was pretty good at that. In fact, there are 48 IndyCar wins here in the booth. Robin and I don't have any. PT has 31, and Danny Sullivan was 17, including the biggest race in the world, the 85 Indianapolis 500. Danny, it's great to have you. There's your old boss, the captain.
There's the captain. Yeah, he's we both drove for him.
Yeah.
Too. And you know, he's a great. I thought he was a fabulous team owner. I mean, he's very competitive, which is what you want. But the guy wants to win as much, if not more, than anybody, and so he pushes everybody to do that.
Well, certainly you were one of his favorites. You were the superstar. I got the tough love a little bit. I always got the hard routine.
You were a miscreant.
You know what?
We've been talking a lot about safety, Danny, and what's happened this last week. And I mean, you're a guy that drove through the 80s, and these cars when they were really dangerous. So maybe you can shed some light on. Do you think it's any dangerous now than it was back then?
I don't think so. I think with the safer barriers, I mean, look, you all had a bunch of big crashes this week, okay? And guys getting in the air as well. Okay, let's not forget everybody except for one walked away from all those accidents and got in the car within, I mean, Elio was over in the infield, and they said, "Okay, you're good to go. Go back."
You certainly, at least even in the 90s, when we were running around here at 235, when you crashed with no safer barrier, it was 80-20 whether you were going to get out of the car or not.
And all to do with the angle you went in.
Yeah.
All to do with the front end of the car. There's an awful lot of foot injuries and so forth, but. Last thing on that, I think also the evolution of the car just over the years, they've gotten better with just technology and so forth. They virtually look the same. They got about the same space in them, but they've gotten better with everything around it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think me personally, I think it's safer, but, you know, oh, gosh.
Let's reminisce a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a
Mario Andretti.
He was confident.
Always a favorite in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Well, Paul, what positions did you start?
I was never very good here at qualifying. It's just, this is one of those tracks where you know the guys that are really good here are the guys who can really drive on the micro edge and do these microscopic kind of.
Let Danny call this.
Danny's deal here.
See, I went in, but Mario, he turns down a little bit and then just coming back up and you know, just one of those things. God, I still get goosebumps when I see that, even though I know the outcome. But just the painted lines, everything, the little bit of stagger we used to run. And Mario did a great job of not, you know, taking us both out. And then I almost spun it again, trying to figure out which gear, because we used to run 3 speed-up gears and 2 top gears, so the engine's dead. I didn't know which gear to put it in.
So now you get another opportunity.
Right.
The same corner of the track, turn number 1. What did you do different this time to make it stick?
I just held up a little bit longer there. Didn't want to go down quite as low. See there, I stayed more on the track. And everybody said, why'd you do it again in turn 1? And I said, look, and Paul knows this, my car was better in 3 and 4 than it was in 1 and 2 compared to Mario's. And so I just could get it. This was my biggest fear right there, was could I get it on the ramp getting in there? After one, I thought, oh, God, can you imagine me screwing it up and missing the ramp? You know.
I told people you passed everybody in one because Penske had all the sponsors in turn one.
Well,
you know, that was good PR.
I'll go with that too. So, yeah, it was, you know.
Well, there's
good
another
memories.
former winner of the Indianapolis 500. He did it for Chip Ganassi, now driving for Roger Penske. And Kelly Stavis has more on what's going on with Juan Pablo Montoya.
He's been sitting here in pit lane for that first half of the session. John Boslak from Team Penske telling me that they've been chasing a boost problem. Now, as they worked under it under that last caution, he thought that they found the issue. They were going to send him back out, and obviously he went and did his lap and has come back in. I don't see him taking the engine cover off, so maybe they have in fact found that issue. But nonetheless, Juan Pablo Montoya, who qualified 15th, maybe not his the starting position he'd like, but he said after Ryan Hunter-Way won this thing from 19th last year, he's not too worried. He knows he can, as you see Tony Kanaan there. Juan Pablo Montoya saying the biggest difference they can make up during the race will be on their in and out laps. If they can pick up a second or two making those pit stops, they can really move forward in the race on Sunday.
Montoya is the only one of the 33 that hasn't posted a competitive time yet, well under 200 miles an hour. Everyone else 222 plus, topped by Kanaan at 228.490.
And you have to wonder, Kevin. I mean, Castroneves hadn't had very many laps either, so you wonder if there was, you know, there was just a little. Now they jump up and they show that he's up into sixth. He was back there with Montoya a little while ago. But Kanaan's a guy you don't count him out, PT.
No, you know, it's arguably he's probably the fittest guy in the field. He keeps himself in tremendous physical shape. You know, the question mark when he lost his deal with Andretti was, oh, this could be the end of the road for him as a career, and he's really had a second breath at life here since he's joined Ganassi. He's just been coming on stronger and stronger. As you see Pagenaud making a move down the inside, no room there, getting pretty racy, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, this almost looks like we're watching stuff from Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, which look at I don't know about you, but I just wouldn't want to be that bunched up.
No, Roger
maybe
certainly doesn't like that. Every time I got in a group like that, Roger'd say, "Bag it off." And
yeah. Well, the problem is you can get sucked up into somebody else's incident.
Yeah.
And have nothing to do with it, and now bang, your car's gone. You know, one thing about I talked to Chip. I came down this morning with him, and I said, "How's your car?" And he said, "We weren't very good in qualifying." He said, "We got a great race car," which isn't what the field really needs to hear.
No. That pass that Kanaan just made, he had it done before the corner, so he is very, very strong.
Well, this Carb Day racing is pretty outstanding, isn't it? They're mixing it up. Charlie Kimball told me Monday he was the happiest he's been with a car the entire month. They've made it even a little bit better today, so Kimball obviously very happy. Right behind him, though, Simon Pagenaud has been extremely strong all month long for May. In fact, Roger Penske told me a moment ago that he is maybe the most consistent Penske car out of the entire group. They've been very surprised, very impressed with what Pagenaud has done. And by the way, I did talk to Roger moments ago, and Paul, he considered both of you guys superstars. He said he didn't have to give you much tough love.
Yeah, but PT never got invited to the Christmas party after a couple years, Danny, so, you know, you always did.
Yeah, I don't want to go there, but but you know what? I tell you what, I'm impressed. These guys are running. They want to know what these things are doing in traffic. That's
I'll tell you what. As you watch these cars close, Danny, you can, if you really zoom in on these front wings with these 4-car turbulence, you can see those front wings just flapping and vibrating. So the turbulence now is in this big draft is what you really want to find out if your car's comfortable, if your gear ratios are right. Everything for the race. These cars are so sensitive now to gear ratios and what you have, you know, by yourself in the draft, out on, you know, getting a big toe like Servia is getting pulled up now. Do you have enough gear to pull up to the pack?
I love the look of Servia's car. Notice the color. It's the same shade of yellow as the Marmon Wasp of Ray Haroon, and the car number 32 is the same, and it's in the same font. Oriole said, I like 32 because that actually was the number I had when I won my Indy Lights championship, but Bobby Rahal is a student of history, and so was Mike Lanigan and David Letterman. So good to see Oriole back in Indianapolis.
I noticed he seems to close up pretty good on the straight. Yeah, I saw the wing moving there on the front. If you could, when they're really close behind them. But I know that Oreo seems to drop back a little bit in the corner. I don't know whether he's got it as well balanced in turbulence. Seems to lose a bit there, but.
Will Power, by the way, has gone to the top of the speed chart today in this final hour practice. 229.020, just ahead of Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Charlie Kimball, and Sage Karam. Yellow on the track, and it is for debris. Stay with us, plenty more to come. The biggest weekend in motorsports is underway. It starts with Carb Day from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Back in Indianapolis, beautiful day so far, not so beautiful for Sebastian Bourdais. They, remember a couple weeks ago, had engine problems at New Orleans on Saturday. They finally fixed it before race day, but they are having all kinds of gremlins so far in this Carb Day practice session, the final one before the Indianapolis 500. I'll run through the list. They were too low. They raised the car. The car has no grip, according to Sebastian. The tires just don't seem to be agreeing with the car. They have come to pit road 7 different times to change things on the car so far in the short session. Part of their telemetry is out. They have changed front wings, and as his engineer said, it seems like the boogeyman is back, referring to the problems they had at New Orleans. He said it's just not good. The car's just not good right now when it's a little bit warmer, but when it's 65 degrees are out or around that temperature, they've been very good, but right now just not very happy with the car. They are so far 24th fastest. Jan?
We've been talking a bit about Sage Karam and how good the car looks. Dario was impressed. So impressed, I guess you've decided to get out all as well.
Yeah, we made a change there with downforce at the end, made the car a bit better. Car was good to begin with, and you know, I can pass guys, I could get really close, and that's the main thing for the race, is just being able to stay close and not get the front wash. But no, the car's really good, so we're just going to call it a day here and just start getting the car prepped for Sunday. You know, when the car's this good, and you know, why go out there and risk, you know, wrecking or you know, hurting some equipment.
All right, well, when it's good, it's good. Nice job, Sage. Guys?
Sage Karam is going to be fun to watch again on Sunday, and I think everyone is going to be entertaining. Here's what we've seen the last 3 years in record passes, overtaking, fantastic finishes. So the question with new aero kits, new body designs, would we race the same? PT, I think we're getting our answer.
I talked to Hunter Radis today, and he said the draft is not as big as it was in the last couple years. It is easier to lead. I think there'll be less artificial passing. I think guys will want to sit in the front more often and keep the clean air on their car.
Do you still think, though, you want to be second on the white flag lap?
Well, certainly if you can't get away, you want to be in the draft and set yourself up for a slingshot.
There's a lot of strategy involved in that as we see it going green once again. Keep in mind, I think you're right, Robin, that you might want to be second and set up on that last lap. But what if somebody crashes? On lap 198 or 199, the race is going to end there. And so you have to take your chances sometimes of being out front.
I know all about that.
Jared Hildebrand's had a really good month, and I'll tell you what, he's maybe the sleeper of the whole race, because he had a hell of a race last year too, and the kid's only getting to run a couple times this year, so I think he's pretty hungry.
It's like Danny said during break. I mean, it's so hard to get in these cars when you've had a year off, and this is a guy who's really was a star in the making. He obviously had that accident here, which has hampered his career. He's got bounced out of a car. He struggled on the road courses, but it seems like when he comes back here, he's always quick, and he's sitting right up front.
And he had a good run going for the ground. He was in the top 6 at the road race a couple weeks ago and had a horrible pit stop. So I think he's fit right into Ed Carpenter's team.
Yeah, they had a mechanical issue that kept him from getting any kind of a good result in his first start of the season. This is his only other guaranteed start for a 3-car team with CFH Racing. Ed Carpenter and Sarah Fisher's team with Wayne Hartman merged, and they're a factor here this weekend.
I think you got to look at in the race, and Paul, you can verify this as well. You just want to stay out of trouble, make sure your car's good, keep tuning it as you go along, stay near the front, but you got to be there for that last 100 miles.
Yeah, you certainly can't fall through the pack outside of the top 5 or 6, because it just gets so difficult to pass, because the guys now versus you know, when I used to drive, or you used to drive, Danny, I mean, the guys now, they'll run you down into the wall on the front straightaway. We've seen that over and over. There's a lot of blocking that goes on, so you certainly want to keep yourself in good company towards the front, because once you get further back in the pack, guys will race you harder than they're racing you for the lead up front.
Right. And you just then lose touch. You get so far behind. So no pit mistakes, no speeding penalties, anything. Just try to keep yourself up in that lead pack.
Yeah, certainly a pit penalty like we saw with Power last year. He was comfortable at the front. You make one little mistake, miss your braking point, you get to drive through under green here. You're done for the day.
Here's a new look for Justin Wilson here for race weekend, driving in his second race of the season for Andretti Autosport, and he is promoting the fact that the Rolling Stones will be playing here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on July 4th. Justin Wilson is the fastest Honda in qualifying, and he's going to start in the 6th position coming up on Sunday. A lot of people think he might be ready to possibly break through. He certainly could be a contender.
He's one of those guys, when he was a champ car, they didn't run any ovals, and he ran Milwaukee one year, and he said, thank God we don't have very many of these. Well, he's gotten more and more comfortable, I think, as road racers. Why is it, Danny? Why is it easier for a road racer to become a good oval racer than vice versa?
I think there's a lot more dexterity and stuff required that you grow up with on a road race car, just learning how to shift, change angles and stuff like that. A little less so on an oval. And so I think they're just easier to adapt to them, particularly a short oval, because it's more like short ovals are a bit like a road course anyway.
Watching Connor Daly, and he has been saying that of the cars in his stable, his car has had the most active front. What he means by that, he has a very positive car. It very much responds to what he does with the steering wheel. And he said, what that's done for me, because the car's been so active or neutral, I have learned how to feel the back of the car, right there in the middle of the corners when it starts to load up the rear. Because I've had such a sensitive car, I've learned all through this month exactly what the rear is doing. He says, I think that's going to help me in the changing conditions.
As we watch Connor, I think he's the guy that everybody would like to see get a full-time ride. Danny, you spent a long time in your career racing against his dad in Formula One. In Indy cars. I didn't race against Derek. He was pretty much retired by the time I got here, but it would be great to see his young son here get a chance full season.
I'd like to see it, and I've also, because when I do the FIA Formula One stuff as a steward, I've gotten to see him a lot in the GP2 over and so forth, and he's never really gotten in the top team, but yet he's always made a lot out of what he had. I think he's a very talented kid. He's very diversified, raced overseas a lot, and I think that'll help. And I'd love to see him in a full-time ride.
You think, Kevin, this will be James Hinchcliffe's replacement? I think a lot of people are hoping Connor gets that seat.
I'm hearing a lot of names. Ryan Briscoe has other commitments with his Chevy sports car team. People are wondering about Justin Wilson, maybe Simona Di Silvestro. Certainly Connor Daly is someone being mentioned as well as we look at Simona Di Silvestro.
Yeah, speaking on Connor, he is actually very, very good friends with James Hinchcliffe. James paid for his first test here at Indianapolis with Andretti Racing. So I think if it was Hinch's choice, it would probably be Connor gets the nod on that, but you never know.
There's one of the crowd favorites, Simona Di Silvestro. I mean, she gets such a nice ovation every time she comes out in front of a big crowd like this, and she's got her, and right behind her is Joseph Newgarden, who got his first victory a few weeks ago. But I think, obviously these are two of the kids that people want to see full-time in race cars up front, and she's shown she's the best female. Connor Daly putting a move on Joseph Newgarden. Oh, let me move out of the way.
Sandwich deal there.
Thread the needle there, so.
Well, that's Ryan Briscoe they were going around, who's 29th on the speed chart, still trying to get a handle on that car in someone else's setup.
And I'm looking up at the screen as well. Montoya still hasn't moved off there, so they clearly haven't sorted that problem out.
And Ryan Hunter-Reay is 30th quick that we were looking ahead of that pack as we see two of the Penske's going at it with Pagenaud going around Helio Castroneves.
And this really right here is team play here. These guys are both qualified at the front. They'll be racing each other at the front. They probably have very similar cars, so they've probably sent both of these guys out together, Danny, like you would go out with Rick and do some drafting practice.
Yeah, Roger would really rather have you do it with your teammate around there to learn what the car's doing in the draft.
As we see all three cars now all together, so that was probably a staged run here.
I would I'd say the captain had something to do with that.
And Juan Pablo Montoya has still not gotten up to speed. Only 2 laps at 160 miles an hour, his best lap. Stefano Coletti there in the silver and orange car, one of just 2 rookies in the field this year.
Tell your story about him, Kevin, with his girlfriend.
Yeah, Stefano Coletti I was asking him how he's adapting to the oval, and he said first couple of days were pretty rough. And he said, you know, honestly, after a couple of days, I texted my girlfriend and I said, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I just don't think I can do it. Told the team, they said, all right, Hannah, you're fine. A lot of people say this. We're going to slap all kinds of downforce on there. They ran a ton of laps the next day, and within a few days, he felt comfortable. He says, you know what? I love this now. This is great. I figured it out. Gabby Chavez on track now is the second rookie, and he'll be up in the booth with us a little bit for the Indy Lights race. We're going to put him to work later on today. He's last year's Freedom 100 winner and Indy Lights champion.
Not to mention he's had some really good drives that he didn't have any good results because of some of the things that have happened to him, but he's been quick all year, and he's a 1-car team, so I think he's made a nice transition from lights to Indy cars.
Heading into the final minutes of this hour-long practice session, about 11 minutes remaining. Will Power is the quickest, trying to learn what they can in their final opportunity in preparation for Sunday's Indianapolis 500. America, start your engines. NASCAR returns to NBC July 4th weekend, live from legendary Daytona International Speedway. All 3 major motorsports championships will be decided on NBC or NBCSN, with IndyCar, Formula One, and NASCAR coming 4th of July weekend to NBC and NBCSN. It's Carb Day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Yellow for debris down to pit lane, and Marty Snyder.
Well, Kevin, coming up in a little bit, we'll have our NASCAR America Motorsports Special. My good friend and our broadcast colleague, Townsend Bell, will be joining us, and he certainly had a 2014 Indy 500 that he will not forget.
From California, Townsend Bell.
So last year we started 25th. Car in qualifying was very well balanced. It just wasn't particularly fast in a straight line. And we had a great race car.
Bell does a really good job for somebody that just comes and races here once a year. He's always in the mix of things.
Came from the back, made it all the way into the top 5, got up into 2nd place.
Oh, crash! Big crash!
Did he lose it down low? Nah, they dove in underneath, made it 3 wide. Oh, that was 3 wide.
You really can't blame Townsend Bell for trying that move.
And then on the final restart, at least for me, we had a failure on the left rear suspension, big crash in turn 2.
And the yellow flag is out with just 10 laps to go. Sorry to see Townsend Bell finding the wall.
And we went from the high of thinking we had a chance to win it to the ultimate low, which is in too much pain to even think about the disappointment at that point. But, you know, we put all that behind us. This place is all about winning. Nobody remembers 2nd, 3rd, 25th. We continue to work on all of the hundreds of things on that list, spending more time preparing the car, getting the little details right to try to pull together and have a great day on Sunday.
And in 2015, Townsend is driving the 24 car to pay tribute to Jeff Gordon, who'll be the pace car driver on Sunday. So Townsend and I will bring you all the stuff from Indianapolis. Again, the Motorsports Special coming up 3:30 right after the pit stop competition here from Indy. Kevin?
Now, during that feature on Townsend, we, of course, got to see Ryan Hunter-Reay setting up the victory, coming back here now as the defending champ, but he is not having a good day. He simply said on the radio, I don't have grip. I cannot get the car to turn. It's full of fuel right now. They came in and connected the fuel hose, which they are required to do. See, he didn't even complete a lap, and he's back on his way to pit road, trying to find something on this car. But right now, Ryan Hunter-Reay doesn't have what he wants.
That's certainly not a good feeling, Danny, when you're having a bad last practice session and it's as cool as it is out today and you don't have any grip, because this is about perfect track conditions.
I would agree with you, and it's very difficult, even with as many teammates as they have, to go get the data and find what is wrong and make sure your car is right, because for sure he's going to start the race with a big question mark.
If there is one guy in the field that can rally, he's a guy that can do it. What do you think, Robin?
Well, I think he showed last year, and all our winners for the last 2 or 3 years have come from the back or the middle, and so it really doesn't matter where you start anymore if your car's good. There's James Davison, who jumped in and got back in a car that Tristan Vautier qualified for him. Little did he know Vautier would be his teammate, but Davidson's done a really impressive job, and I think, okay, well, it's Tristan Vautier, sorry, who's done a hell of a job. And people say, well, Vautier qualified the 19 car, well, they just leave him in that car. And they went, that's not nearly complicated enough.
That's Davison we're looking at there in the front end, sort of the turquoise and black 19 cars. Juan Pablo Montoya goes around him, so that's good to see Montoya on track. These are his first fast laps. So an interesting dynamic with Davison. Sports car duties last weekend. Tristan Vautier, we see they're third in line in the blue and white car. Now fourth in line, that's Connor Daly in the solid blue car. Vautier was, as Jan reported, on his way overseas for a race, gets called back. So I talked with Donald Davidson, the historian of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and asked, have we ever seen anyone qualify one car, start the race in another? He said not since before World War I, when it happened several times.
Really? Because I called Vautier last night when we got the rumor that he might be driving, and I said, hey, congratulations, and he goes, thanks. Oh, for what? So he caught himself, but that's okay, because the kid he was an Indy Lights champ, he was an Indy 500 driver 2 years ago, and then last year he was doing television and being a driver's coach, so it's nice to see the kid get a chance again. He did a hell of a job jumping in.
And for those that joined us late, Carlos Huertas is dealing with an inner ear condition, so we learned this morning that he's not medically cleared to drive this weekend. There's Takuma Sato, who thrilled us a few years ago in that last lap effort to get around Dario Franchitti. AJ loves him because Sato will go after it.
He certainly had a quiet month. He hasn't really been towards the top of the timesheets, but you know, he's having a great practice session right now in 5th, which bodes well for AJ's race setup. He nearly won this race. He got together with Dario Franchitti coming to the last lap, and that was a thrilling race.
It was, and I want to point out something too for the Montoya fans. He's jumped up to run 226, so clearly they're getting that car sorted out, or the pop-off valve issue anyway.
Just a few minutes left in this opportunity for practice here today, with some really needing to get some work done because of a lack of activity on Monday. Namely, we would be talking about the Schmidt-Peterson team and Ryan Briscoe trying to get up to speed, and his two teammates didn't have an opportunity to go back out in the afternoon as well.
It's just like look at all the laps. Nobody's pulling in. Yeah. They're going to run until the final gun, believe me.
And maybe ask for more time tomorrow afternoon. There's one of the AJ cars. Alex Tagliani in a one-off situation in a tribute, Robin, to Dan Gurney.
Dan Gurney, and I think that's pretty cool. AJ and Dan won Le Mans together in 1967, and I think that's the old Gurney paint job, and Dan's going to be here this week and Sunday morning. And Sunday morning, his sons are all going to drive Old Eagles around the speedway on Sunday morning, which will be really cool.
They were out practicing. Looks like he's got a little debris hanging off.
Something flapping around on the car there.
Doesn't look like much. Picked up something that's hung on that right side, right behind the right front wheel.
You know, he's one of these guys that's got incredible feel. He's been on the pole here a couple times, and he's never had a great race, but he's certainly very, very quick here at Indianapolis. And you don't sit on the pole without having great feel and how to, you know, really drive the car on the edge. And that's, to get the pole here, that's what it takes, is really just that fine little micro steering effort you have to do. You have to drive the car right on the limit of being loose. And he's got great feel, but he's just never been able to have a good race and put it all together on race day.
You know, I've heard his name come up with someone that maybe might be under consideration for the 5 car until Hinch is ready to return. He has a relationship as a fellow Canadian with Rick Peterson, the co-owner, so a lot of things in play there for that car. Maybe even multiple drivers until Hinch comes back, who has not been ruled out for the rest of the season. It's still early to tell, and one of the great things we learned the other day is that James Hinchcliffe wasn't going to require any further procedures.
Yeah, Tag has been running a stock car up in Canada. He's got his own team now, so obviously not under any obligation to anybody. He could shut that down immediately and hop in this, and that would be a good tie-in as a partially Canadian-owned team for him to get the nod.
Checkered flag is out, so drivers can finish this lap, and they will pit. And that will be it as far as any preparation on track before The biggest race of the year for these drivers and the biggest race in the world. Will Power, certainly one of the favorites. Can he get it done?
Danny, would you like to see the apron come back? We've been arguing about this for a long time. It came in handy sometimes, didn't it?
I would love to have the apron back. I think and I'll tell you who it would help even more than the Indy cars is the NASCAR boys, because of just giving that one little more lane down there. We saw some great racing because of it. I think it would be a benefit, but there again, I used it a lot.
Yeah, well, you did.
And it worked out for me, but I just thought it was part of the track. It was pretty scary in warm-up.
Was the camber different on the apron to the racetrack?
Just slightly,
yeah.
Just a little bit of change there. But remember, they also used to paint the tires every night. And I think and don't forget, in the bias ply era, we'd run stagger. Well, you know, they talk about 28th or 30th thou of stagger. Well, just to put that in perspective, as big as that rear tire is, that was the width of a matchbook cover to make the difference between your car pushing and being loose.
Yeah.
Here's a look at your practice speeds for carb dates. Very similar to what we saw in qualifying, and they qualified in race trim, so that gives us an indication. Will Power the fastest. The one that jumped up there was Takuma Sato, 5th quick.
Nice run
Pablo
for
Montoya
Servia,
did
too.
get back out. Servia, as you mentioned.
I got a feeling Montoya's about the most relieved out there to figure out what that problem was right before the end.
Our man Townsend Bell looked like he struggled a little bit, but he's racy on race day. You can count on him moving forward. He doesn't want to sit in the back.
Danny, thank you so much for coming up. It's always great to see you back here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Thank you very much. Great to be up here.
85 winner Danny Sullivan. There's the Steak and Shake driver. Steak and Shake has certainly got a lot of pub here in the last few weeks with Graham Rahal. Consecutive second-place finishes. Can he move up one notch and win the Indianapolis 500? The final practice is complete. Real quick, race day.
I mean, it looks right now like it's going to be a Penske-Ganassi showdown. All the players are at the top of the grid.
2012, Chevrolet dominated qualifying. Honda ran 1-2. Don't count Honda out.